Hello and welcome to another episode of the Thought Leaders series with Student Garden. Today, I'm super excited to be joined by Julian Longbottom. Julian, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. It's great to be here.
Julian, super excited given, you've had such an extensive career, I guess, kind of working in education and working in a wide range of parts of, the education ecosystem. Looking you up, you obviously worked at Canberra University, you're at IDP, recently at an EdTech, so a really wide range of experience. So maybe a good place for us to start. I'd love to hear some of the highlights, I guess, from kind of your career and things that sort of stick out to you about, from working within the education industry, and maybe some of the principles that have kind of enabled you to have, a successful career and a really enriched one in terms of, your ability to kind of move around.
Yeah, thanks, George. To start with, I joined this industry from a long time in the alcohol industry with CUB.
Okay, yeah.
Just not far from here over at Abbotsford. And people asked when I moved into the international education space, why? I mean, beer into international education? How did you do that? But my role,
students love beer.
Well, students love beer. And I'd been working across marketing, business development, and particularly the research, the consumer research part of CUB. So I felt it was transferable skills, and it was a way of trying to build Australia's reputation, moving into IDP, building Australia's reputation as a lead provider of international education, really helped boost the university sector. So it was a change, transferable skills, getting into IDP that at that time in late 2005 was wholly owned by the Australian unis. And it was an exciting time to join because the CEO recruited me in to develop products and services alongside the recruitment piece. And he just had approval from the board to sell up to 50% of the of IDP to a commercial provider. That was a really exciting time to be part of international education and with IDP, because it meant how can we really show what IDP can do. And some of the ideas, obviously, were adjacent products like accommodation, like a bank account, like those kinds of things that would support a student. But the big ticket item was how could IDP recruit for other organisations?
Yeah.
And while the Australian industry was nervous about doing that because the Australian universities owned IDP, and it was a case of, well, if we start recruiting for other countries, we'll lose our students. We don't want to do that. A commercial owner helped to sort of clear the way for that to happen. So that was a really exciting time. I got to the point where I thought I've either got to, I'm on the outer of the university sector. I need to really understand what goes on within a university, and I had the opportunity to join the University of Canberra, and that really did change my perspective of coming from a commercial side, from CUB, from IDP being very commercial, into the university sector, directly. So that was an interesting time, and really got to understand that the universities don't work at the same pace as a commercial provider, and they tend. And I think one of the key learnings I got from that is that clearly universities are all about evidence-based. Academics are evidence-based. So on the professional side, you can't just sort of, perhaps like you can in a commercial world, come up and say, "Hey George, I've got this idea. What do you reckon? Shall we give it a go?
Let's get it into the market and test it."
Yeah. And you'd say, "Yeah, great idea. Let's give it a go."
Yeah.
Academics, well, where's the rigor in this? Where's the background? How do we know this is going to work? So it's very more considered, obviously, evidence-based, and things take a lot longer to get done in the university sector. At that time, I was also thinking, we at Canberra, and like many other universities, recruited through traditional channels like agents, like IDP. And back in those days, in the early, about 2012, 13, this whole idea of lead generation was starting to develop. And I thought we've got to do more with digital recruitment. We've got to become more self-sufficient with using tech tools to build the brand, because universities like Canberra and the regional universities aren't necessarily as known by international students. Not in the two major cities of Melbourne and Sydney, obviously, which is an easy destination to go to. So we wanted to use digital tools, and then I met, coincidentally, the owners, founders of study portals. who wanted to obviously disrupt the recruitment world globally with digital technology, and that's where I've been for the last 10 years or so.
Yeah, interesting. And did you find, how did you kind of find that, I guess, going from a fast-paced commercial role into kind of, as you say, a more considered, slower pace? Was that frustrating at times? Did it just take a bit of time to adapt? Like, how actually was that experience from going from kind of commercial into, the international recruitment space?
It's you need to be aware with it. I remember at the time when I was being interviewed for the IDP role, the CEO asked me, "How are you going to go in a role like this in the education space?" And I thought, it's just going to be like anything else.
Yeah.
Like, whoa. And it's like you go through a door and go back 20 years in that sense. It was different. You need to adapt. I think I adapted because I still wanted to bring some general marketing principles to the role and to the organisation. But I've seen a lot of people come into the industry from commercial world and just sort of struggle.
Yeah.
It's just, you've just got to say, okay, this is how it operates. If I want to get an initiative up, it's going to need lots of papers, lots of meetings, lots of consultation, because that's the way it works. Yes, it takes a bit longer, but that's just the nature of working in universities.
How is that kind of changing and evolving, and what's kind of really important when it comes to, being attractive to kind of these international audiences?
Well, first the elevator pitch, and that really is Study Portals is the study choice platform, looking at services like SEMrush or SimilarWeb, things like that. You'll see that the Study Portals has probably the strongest profile out there. And reason for that is we're capturing student search from every country, as I mentioned, to start to search and compare over 250,000 degree programs in over 100 countries and 3,000 providers. So it really is a comprehensive database. So if a student sitting at home can do an easy search and compare. The platform provides tools for comparison in this market, like iSelect, that kind of product, and then ongoing digital nurturing that can be done for independently for students, depending on what they click on, but also tools provided so they can look for their best fit, and they can be sent study ideas that fit their academic and their financial background. So that's and then depending on the client and how they want to interact, they can pay at the top of the funnel, cost per click, cost per lead. But more and more, we've been moving towards the study portals and move towards a success-based fee based on tracking and enrollment. So it's working with the client to make sure that there is tracking in place to see that the student first, looked at the study portals platform to get interested in the course and track that through to an enrollment. So that's the advertising side of the platform. Because of the students and 50 plus million students a year are looking at the platform, searching all these programs. There's a lot of data, hundreds of millions of page views of data of students clicking on particular courses. And from that data, the analytics team create a range of Tableau dashboards. So clients can use those to look at where are the students searching from, down to even city, village, town kind of level, for what kind of course where. And that becomes really valuable data in terms of determining marketing strategy. We thought all our students came from India, but wow, I didn't realize there was so much interest from Kenya, Nigeria, Colombia, or wherever it is. Now, that might be an area where typically the university doesn't have, or the institution, because it's not just universities, institution doesn't have an agent network. But it's a way of getting, as I mentioned before, getting the brand into the households of students that are searching. And it might not be the place that you would typically think, because you've got a particular product for a particular student who wants to study that to come back and work in that particular area, e.g. nursing or some kind of healthcare work. So that's those two parts to the
data business and an acquisition business, effectively.
So how does that help students? Well, it means that they can be more. They've got the opportunity to search. They can see more around what's available. The mission of study portals, for example, is that no student around the world will miss out on education through a lack of information.
Mm-hmm.
So that's really
great
ambition.
Yeah.
Ambition. So to make sure that students are seeing what's available, and importantly, seeing that what financial options are available through a range of scholarships. So there's all that information that can make students aware, apply, and then it's up to the universities to look after that student through that whole journey application. And I think it's the same. Back to your question, the same old chestnut is what's different. Perhaps nothing's different, but what is important is that, like in most consumer products, we want to have a response straight away.
Yep.
And if you look at a range of organisations, will do surveys about what students want, and it's often about we just want to hear, we want a personalised
speed of
response to our question, and we want to feel like we're having an ongoing conversation with that university. And the quicker that response, the more informative that response is, the more that you're going to build, and the institution will build a relationship with that student, and ideally increase conversion.
In terms of the kind of affordability, debate, the housing affordability debate, it's a relatively small segment of the market, really, when you look at it, although it's a topical one, and one that's widely debated, and, we're coming to an election year. So I'm sure that has something to do with the fact that it's very front and centre. And, obviously we do have a housing crisis here, and things need to be done to improve accessibility and affordability. But as you say, it's like these decisions that we're making now and the impact that they're going to have on the economy and the people living in this state and in this country, is that flow-on effect we're going to see in 5-10 years is kind of really when we're going to kind of start to see how this policy is going to kind of shape and kind of change not just the international student market, but the kind of society and community as a whole.
Exactly, and that's what I'd like to see, not a knee-jerk reaction of, let's put caps on. Let's have a considered what does the 5 to 10 year vision look like?
Yeah.
And how's that going to impact? And again, I guess we're getting into politics here, but it's more around we just don't seem to ever have a long-term vision. We sort of go from one election to the next, and the election's fought on whatever the most topical issue is. Yeah. And there seems to be votes in capping international students or capping migration. So
correct.
International students are caught up in that.
Yeah.
The demand is out there. If you look at work that NOUS have done, and also Navitas together, and projections from some of the IDP annual reports, the growth rate has been around about 6 or 7% coming globally in terms of students crossing borders to study. The estimates now are about 7 million students have crossed borders to study. And by the end of the decade, that'll be 9 million. So now they're not all studying English, but predominantly they are. But there's this ongoing demand to go and study. And it's going to get soaked up somewhere. If we don't, if Australia doesn't do something about it, then students will vote with their feet and go somewhere else.
Yeah, and obviously Canada has a pretty hardline stance and is making a lot of changes. So it seems like, the UK, there's a big opportunity for the UK, and other markets as well are going to, as you say, soak up that demand.
Well, the big region is Asia. From a study portal's data point of view, over the last couple of years, the search of students searching in Asia has almost doubled.
Wow.
About 3.6% to a bit over 6%.
Searching for to study
English taught degree programs in Asia. And if you look at the Times Higher Ed, they've just done their Asia rankings about 6 weeks ago. 70 new Asian universities added to the list. And globally, I think they're now saying they've got a record of 2,800 or so universities have submitted data for this year's global rankings. That's up from, initially, if you go back 10 years or so, it was 500.
Yeah.
Now, most of those universities are from Asia, 113 from India, for example. We've got 40-ish, in Australia.
Yeah.
Now, 113 universities in India are wanting to be part of the ranking system. Now, so they're growing, and they're ambitious. These countries are ambitious about trying to get more students. So it's a competitive world. It's a very competitive world. So if we just want to say, right, we've got enough.
Yeah,
then
they're going to go somewhere.
They're going to go somewhere else.
Yeah, and it might be very difficult to get them back. Is kind of the headline.
Yeah.
You're obviously involved in the IEAA. Would love to kind of hear a little bit about, I've been involved in some of the amazing events that you guys host. Would love to kind of hear from you in terms of what are some of the kind of topics and events and conversations the IEAA is kind of focused on at the moment, and what's the industry want to kind of hear about in terms of, being informed about what's going on.
Yeah, so I've recently become a fellow of the IAA, having spent quite a lot of time in the industry.
Yeah.
I'm not on any of the committees as yet, but participate obviously in a lot of events, predominantly the Australian International Education Conference, which when I was at IDP, was part of the organising committee for the conference, and did things to get external speakers in, like Chris Richardson, a leading economist, and Bernard Salt, who people probably know here from the Australian and writes on demography. And I've always felt that AIEC provides a really good content for practitioners in international education. Probably I think the best from a content point of view of all the major conferences around the world. So I think it's one that people should get behind and really not just attend, but put their hand up to present, to really share the good stuff that people are doing around the industry here. So the conference is a big thing, and then that's supplemented. Obviously, when I was around at IDP when the IAA first started, it was the two Tonys. Tony Pollock, who was the CEO of IDP, and Tony Adams, who had the idea of building a professional development organisation akin to NAFSA and EAIE in Europe. And so it's grown from an idea from these Tonys into 3,000, 4,000 plus members now, with special interest groups across marketing and recruitment to admissions and T&E and so on, the whole range of things. So it really is encompassing. It means that people in the industry can get involved in the particular area that they're have interest in, and then be part of those special interest groups and contribute to those special interest groups and get dialogue happening that is important to the industry. I know there was one on T&E, I think it was last week, which I wasn't able to join, but in the last government, the current government, there's been talk about, if we can't bring the students into the country, why aren't we educating 10 million students online around the world? So maybe that's going to happen down the track. Maybe there'll be more T&E. We're seeing universities setting up campuses in India, for example. Will there be more T&E? So for those people working in the T&E space, be part of that special interest group. Chip in, share your ideas. The more that we can share, then I think, getting back to our other point, the more there's more evidence based to then lobby government to say, no, this is what we're doing. This is important, not just for students, but for the industry and for the country as a whole. It really helps to build the profile of Australian education. So I think there's a range of things. I think later this month there's the marketing forum, which is presented at in the past. It's a great way to
we presented there. It's an awesome
thing.
Yeah.
So I think it's a great professional body to be involved in, and people people should be involved. And I think full credit to Phil Honeywood, who's I think led it for 10 years. And has been tireless in support and lobbying and being involved in just helping the industry get access to the major ministers.
Oh, particularly through the COVID period as well, where there was so much involvement and lobbying the government and trying to get information, for the industry. I mean, did a phenomenal job through that period. Yeah,
and now through trying to coordinate responses around this whole idea about caps.
Yeah.
So I think IEAA is a terrific, solid organisation. They're doing more and more now. I believe with NAFSA and EAIE and really connecting these international organisations.
Yeah.
So it's
cool.
Yeah.
Final question for you. We've got the crystal ball out. Looking at the kind of next decade, what do you kind of see? How do you see the higher education, how do you see the higher education industry in Australia evolving, both from like a domestic context as well as an international context? And what are some of the things, trends that are going to emerge, and how do you think the industry is going to evolve over the next 10 years?
Well, from a domestic point of view, I just heard the other day that the Howard and Costello baby boom, one for mum, one for dad, one for the country.
Yeah.
They're starting to come through in the next couple of years. So we might see a slight bubble in terms of domestic numbers, but probably not really substantial. So international is going to be, particularly for the Australian market, going to remain very important, because at 35% penetration, or whatever the actual number is, that's very important. And universities are obviously making a lot of money from international students. That is perhaps the difference between a surplus and a deficit.
Totally.
Or paying for research projects. So I just don't think that, and as I mentioned before, this is ongoing demand. I just don't think we just can't stop it. I'm hopeful that that the government will see will be fair and see that just what a strong contributor it is to the economy, and therefore the caps and all these things might be tweaks rather than real blunt instruments.
And do you see that kind of T&E space, in-country campuses? Do you think that's going to kind of, regardless of what happens with the caps, do you think that's going to continue to be an important part, and that's going to kind of grow as part of the industry?
Look, I think it could, but obviously there are issues about that. When I was at Canberra, we had courses that were selected courses delivered offshore in markets like China and Hong Kong, Singapore. But there were selected courses from a particular faculty. So when you do T&E, and it was typically a fly-in, fly-out delivery model.
Right, okay.
So to take your whole university and then try and drop it somewhere, and then to say we're going to replicate everything that we do to double the revenue that we get is just
it's a different model,
too hard.
Right? Yeah.
So yes, I think perhaps selected T&E particular courses, or the on-campus partnerships delivery, I think that's got to happen. But then over time, I just sort of feel, looking forward to the next 10 years, where my feeling is now we're at a point where we're going to start to see more and more consolidation.
Great.
Do we need to have as many universities around the world as we currently do? Will there be more partnerships? Will there be more university partnership, public, private? There could be a whole range of things. And then going forward 10 years, we come into the issue of, is a university degree still going to be the same as it is now? Do you need to have an undergrad degree? Do you need to have a postgrad degree? So that's that'll change. Or can you stack up credentials along the way? So how that could probably all change depending on whether institutions here are brave enough to say we're going to keep on doing the same thing, or we don't want to all be the same and offer all the same kind of courses. We're now going to go and be a particular niche. We're going to have something special. So bring in marketing principles and say, how do the universities in this country differentiate themselves?
I think that's kind of what the student of tomorrow demands, is more personalization, more relevancy in what they're studying, to be able to kind of go and apply it in the area where they want to kind of grow into and go develop a career. I think certainly I'm of the view that the ability to kind of tailor your study journey and the credentials that you're doing is a kind of win-win for the organisation and for the student, because and obviously for the country in terms of producing people who are really engaged and highly productive. I think certainly that's going to kind of continue to evolve, and I think it needs to kind of meet the demands of kind of that student of tomorrow.
The student of tomorrow, and also the workforce of tomorrow.
Yeah.
To give you a quick example, leading into the API conference in Perth back in March, I ran a workshop in conjunction with Nous Group. So it was a combined study portals, Curtin University, Nous Group function workshop. And the title was this workshop, which we invited people that were attending API and local people in Perth to come, was around beyond enrolment. So, but the idea of this was a report that Study Portals and Nous both wrote together last year around the university as connector. So what are students searching? So using the study portal started to understand where are these students from and what are they searching, what is the university delivering, and then what are employers wanting. So now as a sort of a connector, have access to the study portal's data. They have access to data from Lightcast. Lightcast used to be called Burning Glass, and they collect data from the web around jobs available from multiple countries, the skills required, and the job description. So in this workshop, we aligned the search with the university and what what employers are looking for.
Yeah.
And to give you an example of the sort of the discipline, we used environmental science, and within that, we could the Lightcast data could show what the growth is in environmental science jobs. What are they called? Where are they around the world? And in particular, what skills are they looking for? Now, perhaps not surprisingly, in this litigious kind of world we live in, environmental compliance was the top of the thing, and making sure that is covered in the curriculum of that course. But what surprised me, because this data could be trended, is out of the last couple of years, data management and report writing jumped out as two skills that are really important in these jobs. So when someone at the university can say to their faculty, look, this is what the employers are wanting. Are we delivering enough in terms of simply report writing? You think probably yes, but how much does that sort of get taken as, oh, of course we do that?
Yeah.
Data management. Well, maybe we're not doing enough in terms of data management, particularly environmental science. What data are we collecting? How's it being used? Are we using it smartly to do, put it into AI models or use regression analysis or something to really figure out what is driving change? So I think moving forward, there's got to be a greater connection between the university and industry to make sure that the graduates have got the right skills and they are being being used by the
completely agree. Well, Julian, it's been absolutely wonderful. Certainly learned a lot today, and incredible to kind of tap into your experience. You can tell, obviously, you're very well researched and very passionate kind of about the industry. So really enjoyed having you to join us today. So thank you.
Well, thanks, George. Thanks for having me along. It's been fun.
Cheers.
See ya.